This is the Your Career Story podcast, and you're listening to episode 28, 4 Ways to Make Your Dream Job Find You. Welcome to Your Career Story podcast, a show that's designed for rockstar professionals looking for that extra booster shot of confidence in their careers. Whether you're trying to get clarity on a job transition, want some work-life balance inspiration, or need a strategy to snag that promotion or raise, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jenna Viviano, ex-Wall Streeter turned startup junkie who now coaches hundreds of clients, empowering them to take back control of the job search and land their dream job. So sit back, grab a glass of wine, and prepare yourself for your weekly boost of career confidence. Welcome back, fam. I hope you guys are having a really great week. At the time of this recording, I am bebopping away on producing this content, refining this content that's going to be in the LinkedIn by Lunch course that is, at the time of the release of this episode, is now available for you guys. So if you are interested in learning how to refine your profile and to make sure that it gets done lickety-split so that you're not missing out on amazing opportunities, you need to head over now to www.jennaviviano.com/LinkedIn so that you can check out how to actually write your profile and not be confused by it. I've worked with hundreds of people. Let me help you. Let me help you get from A to B. So at the time of this recording, I'm actually refining this content to make sure that it is amazing for you guys. So whether you are a 9-to-5er or you're an entrepreneur, I firmly believe that LinkedIn is the way of the future. And we all need to be on the platform utilizing it and making sure that we are building our personal brands there. And so that course is designed to help you do that. So just wanted to let you guys know about that's going on in the background. So if you're interested in that, again, www.jennaviviano.com/LinkedIn. But I have been thinking a little bit about this podcast and as we enter into the new season. So the first season was kind of just an experiment. We wanted to see what worked, what didn't work. The second season was all about interviewing folks on different topics around rest and work-life balance. And then this season has pretty much predominantly been workshop style podcast episodes where we're talking a little bit about, more tactical, practical things to help you in your career, to help you find a new job. So hopefully it's been really helpful for you. And as we're thinking about, brainstorming and dreaming for 2020, it's crazy, right? We're almost there. I cannot believe it. We're thinking about different ways to create some really awesome content that's unique and interesting and different in this space. And so one, if you have any ideas of things that you would love to hear more information on, please let us know. We're definitely always willing to take advice or suggestions, or we love your ideas. So please message me on LinkedIn or on Instagram. And find me there because that's where I live most of the time. Also, feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer via that as well. But one of the, I am a firm believer that, which I haven't done always super, super well. And I think listening back to the work-life balance series that we did in the summer and just really understanding the importance of taking breaks and not fully focusing 100% on work 100% of the time because you get drained, you get burnout. Duh, that's obvious, right? Well, I actually started to make some changes specifically in what I was reading after re-listening back to actually some of those episodes. Predominantly what I used to read was just Christian life books, very heady books. I would read things that were more business oriented to help me in my business. And I kind of stopped reading things that were more fun to read. So fiction or biographies. And I made a concerted effort this fall to do more of that, to read more things that were more just enjoyable, that didn't necessarily have a quote unquote purpose, but hopefully would expand my mind in a different way. And so because I have been really into food lately, my boyfriend loves food and he loves to cook. And so that's been a really fun thing for us to do together. And we've been watching on Netflix Chef's Table, which is like documentary style. If you guys know about it, I highly recommend it if you haven't watched it, but documentary style of chefs and their experiences, building up their practice, building up their career, and then also just the food that they produce. It's very visually appealing. It's really cool. They're fun stories. If you ever want to feel empowered if you've ever failed in your life, which all of these chefs have and how they've overcome it, it's super inspiring. So I would recommend that. But in the effort of watching that type of material, a friend of mine suggested a book to me, and it's by Ruth Reichl, who is actually a food critic in New York City. She was a food critic in the late 80s, early 90s in New York City. So very different New York City than I lived in. And she recommended a book called Garlic and Sapphires. And it's been such a fun read. So if you want something that's funny, if you want something that's interesting, it's something that's different, it's semi-autobiographical. She just has a really great way. She's a really great writer. She talks about food, which is super fun. But it got me thinking. So she's a food critic. She'll go into restaurants and she would evaluate what the service was like, and she would evaluate what that experience was like as a food critic. So she'd go in as herself and then simultaneously would go in disguise and see how she was treated differently. Super funny, super fascinating book. Highly recommend the read. But it got me thinking a little bit about, why are there not culture critics? So one of the biggest questions I get from a lot of people is like, how do I actually know that a company is who they say they are and they're not just marketing to me? And so I have been spewing around or, thinking about this idea of creating a segment on this podcast called The Culture Critic, where I look at a specific company and critique it as a food critic would for a restaurant. And have a certain amount of things that I'm looking for, maybe certain different demographics that I'm looking at, or specifics that to help it make it a little bit more consistent across the board. And it's not just so subjective. And actually have conversations with real people. So I don't know, are you guys interested in that? Does that sound fascinating to you? Would you find that valuable? If you would, please message me, because that's going to show me that people are interested in hearing more about different cultures of companies. Even if we bring people on from those organizations to talk about the culture, what it's actually like, versus the marketing that we're seeing spewed at us all across the board. My least favorite thing that happens for clients is we think they're going to be working for this amazing company, and then they get into the company and it's not at all what they were promised. That is the worst feeling. If that's happened to you, I am so sorry. That is not okay. And it's just the worst feeling, because you work so hard to get to this company. You had high hopes and it's just never what you thought it was going to look like. So if you're interested in me doing a culture critic segment, let a sister know. Message me on LinkedIn, message me on Instagram. I'm happy to do that. Also, I want to thank you guys for giving reviews. So if you are a listener of this podcast and you've been listening for a couple of times and you've been enjoying yourself, we would love if you would go over to the Apple Podcast app and give us a review. It really helps more people find the show. And it just helps us to kind of stay in business, if you will. I got this one specifically from Wisco College students. So thank you so much for your review and for messaging and providing that. It really helps us keep going, and not only keep going, but helps us see like what's actually resonating with people. So Wisco College student said, listening to this podcast has helped me be more comfortable with talking about my skills, and I have been encouraged just from listening for the past week. Jenna gives excellent advice for free in this podcast. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. My whole team appreciates that. It helps us keep going and helps us see what you guys are interested in. So if you would give us a rating, we would love that. We'd be so grateful, so thankful. And I want to be able to feature you on the podcast episode next week. So please do that. All right. Today we are talking about 4 ways to make your dream job find you. Now, the title may be a little misleading, because this episode is not about taking a passive approach to the job search process. I think too many people, my whole mantra is, my whole business is based off of not that. So if you've been hoping that you're going to come into this episode, I'm just going to tell you to sit back, relax, chill, drink a margarita, though I highly recommend that. Sit back, chill, drink a margarita, and just not do anything. This is not going to be the podcast for you. You can hit pause now and move on. But this podcast episode is more about how to prepare yourself for when that time comes that you need to find a job, so that it is not difficult for you, that it just becomes natural. It's a part of your rhythm, and it doesn't feel like it's some crazy thing, but the jobs will come to find you by the way the work that you put in beforehand. So this is not a passive episode. This is very active. And I'm going to give you 4 specific ways to help make the dream job find you. So the number one thing that I recommend for all clients to do is to create a little black book of networking. So people hate networking, and I totally get it. It can feel uncomfortable. I hate networking events, by the way. I do not enjoy them. Let me tell you a little bit about an awful networking event that I went to recently. The event itself was beautiful, but I was just not in the right state of mind. And I was talking to a woman who I met there, and we were just, chit-chatting. Can I tell you, my brain was just not there. And she was an amazing woman. She lived locally in the area, and we were both at this event, asked to go to this event, and I just was out of it. And I literally excused myself from the conversation because I was so not wanting to be there. So don't do that. Sometimes you have to because you're so exhausted. But so if you ever feel like you are in a networking situation and you just are not loving life, I've been there, friend. That was me this past week. So But what I would recommend is to get into a rhythm of networking. I said this on the Jenna Kutcher podcast that I was featured on, where you cannot network only when you need something. That you just cannot do that. Do not network only when you need something. You need to be in a continual state of networking, of connecting with people, of getting to know new people. And then also not just getting to know new people, but cultivating the relationships that you've already gathered and built. So a reason why this helps you attract a dream job and help the dream job find you is that there's an estimate that 70% of jobs are not even advertised online. I've talked about this before, but typically, and don't quote me on this exact number, but the last I checked, LinkedIn charges about $250 per month per job posting. So that means if a company is interested in hiring somebody and they want to use LinkedIn, it's pretty pricey to have that up listed. So a lot of companies don't actually use advertising. So 70% of jobs are not even advertised. And why that's helpful, why networking is so helpful in this is if you're continually getting to know people, they continually get to know you, they understand the value that they can bring, you're going to be top of mind when the opportunity does come up. So a company, obviously, if they know of somebody, they would rather talk to that person before they go and waste a bunch of money spending on advertising for their jobs. So networking really, really helps. Do not wait until it's too late. And at the end of the day, job opportunities are built on relationships. Most of my clients, my one-on-one clients, do not find jobs just from applying online. They find jobs through their relationships. So some practical things that you can be doing today to get yourself in the rhythm of networking. One, you should be on LinkedIn. We've talked about that enough. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. But you should really have like a list of about your top 10 people that you want to continually be in conversation with. So what do I mean by that? Every about 3 months, so every quarter, I will reach out to people that are on my little black book, my short list, my little black book of networking. And they're usually people that have been in my past. They have been past managers that I've worked with, people that I respect in the industry. And it's either in my industry or people that I used to work with. And I will just kind of reach out to them and say, hey, like, what's going on with your family? Or how are things going with business? Or I saw that you moved from XYZ company to company. How's that going for you? It's just asking them a personal question and reopening the conversation. And so oftentimes what will happen is we'll say, hey, let's just hop on the phone call. I haven't talked to you in forever. Let's chit chat, right? And so it gives you the opportunity to see what's going on with them. Can you help that person? Because again, networking is not about you. It's about a mutual beneficial relationship. How can I help that person? And then potentially, how could they help me if I'm looking to make a change, right? And so I think both things are really relevant. And networking doesn't feel as awkward in that situation when you're finally going to make an ask for something, because you've been cultivating that relationship over a long period of time and you really care about that person. So one, I would be continually connecting with people on LinkedIn. I would continually be thinking about ways to engage people and to get to know them and see if you can collaborate with them. I'm constantly thinking about how can I provide value for somebody before I ask them for something. So I'm going to do a whole episode next week on how I got on the Jenna Kutcher podcast, but that's basically what I did. I provided value first, didn't ask for anything, and then I made my ask to be on her podcast. And so I think for you, whether you're in a 9-to-5 or you're not in a 9-to-5, either way, you need to be thinking about ways to provide value throughout the entirety of the relationship. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend building up your little black book of networking so that when it is time for you to actually find an opportunity, it comes to you. The other thing is when people who are high networkers often don't ever have to look for a job. The jobs will come to them because people in their network will know that they're good at what they do and will reach out to them when they hear about an opportunity. I have a couple of clients right now who are those types of people. They have never really had to actively search for a job. And so it's been a huge blessing for them in their life because they haven't had to actually deal with the stress of figuring that out because they've been continually networking. Now, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, Jenna, I haven't been doing that, start today. Do one thing today to help move the needle forward. Some things you can think about is think about who in your past work experiences do you still want to be connected to? Reach back out to them. It is not uncomfortable. Just what's the worst they can do? Not respond, right? That's the worst thing that can happen. But I would really, really recommend focusing on just cultivating those relationships over the long term. I would get out a piece of paper or I would put it in a notebook. I'm going to tease this out there and see if people are interested in it. But we are toying with the idea of building out a journal called the Your Career Story Journal, where people can keep track of their careers, keep track of their contacts. Now, LinkedIn's super helpful for that. It's digital, but I think there's something about putting names on a paper to remind yourself, check back in with that person, follow up with that person. It's more intentional. It's more specific. And it allows you to actually put the effort in to do the thing that you want to do to help build that relationship. So first things first about how to make your dream job find you is build your network so that when opportunities arise, you're the first person that someone thinks of. That's the first thing. Have you been staring blankly at your LinkedIn profile? Are you finding that every time you hop onto LinkedIn, you're reminded of how incomplete your profile actually looks? You're probably overwhelmed with where to start. Or maybe you're just simply confused on how to use the dang site. Now here's the problem with procrastinating on your LinkedIn profile. Your poorly thrown together profile is most likely keeping you from landing your dream job and networking like a boss. Yeah, we don't want that. Friend, it is time to get out of procrastination and launch forward into action. If you've been around for a while, you know I refuse to allow you to stay stuck. Things in your life won't start moving until you start moving. So I'm gonna help a brother or sister out. I'm gonna give you a jump start on crafting the perfect LinkedIn summary. That pesky About Me section at the top of your profile is about to get a lot easier. Just head on over to www.jennaviviano.com/summary to snag your free LinkedIn summary template. In this guide, I walk you through step by step how to write a LinkedIn summary that boosts your personal brand and impresses an employer. I even give you examples of real people who have killed the LinkedIn summary game. So jump to www.jennaviviano.com/summary to get out of procrastination and into LinkedIn profile action. The second thing is develop LinkedIn content. So again, back to LinkedIn. I'm a firm believer that if you want to be perceived as a thought leader in your area of expertise, and quite frankly, everybody should want to be considered as a thought leader, because here's the deal. If you're in a 9-to-5 job, and this is where my entrepreneurs get something that maybe my 9-to-5ers don't, but if you're in a 9-to-5 job, what is a reason for somebody not hiring you? It's because they think you don't know what you're talking about. It's because they think that they can't trust you to actually get the job done because they don't really know if you're going to be good use of their time, or they don't think you can actually do the work. One way to overcome that is to produce content, to produce value before you even get in the door. So if you're in marketing, let's say for instance, and they want to make sure that you're going to be able to do XYZ thing, you should be continually talking about things in your industry that are relevant to the jobs that you potentially want to have in the future. So that could be writing about leadership. That could be writing about specific things that are going on in the industry. That could be things that are behind the scenes of what it looks like to work there, advice that you have for other people to get them engaged. So different types of content that you can produce. This could be short form on posts that are like kind of like status updates. It's similar to Facebook on LinkedIn. They're like status updates. They're a shorter amount of characters that you can utilize, or you can produce articles. Both things can really help showcase. You have reference points of your personal brand that you're building to showcase that you are a thought leader, to showcase that you put the effort in, to showcase that you're continually honing and excelling in your craft, right? And that's going to make an employer want to hire you more than somebody not. Also, if you're producing content, what that does for you, specifically on LinkedIn, the way their algorithm works, if you produce something, the people in your network will see it. If they like it, it's going to show up on the people in their networks page and see that as well. So I have gotten a lot of clients from people that aren't even connected to me because they saw their friend of a friend like one of my posts that got then on their feed, and then they were interested, intrigued, and went to my page. The same thing holds true if you're an employer. So if you're looking for an employer to hire you, you producing content in your specific area of expertise is going to make you look elevated. It's going to make you look like an expert, and it's going to make you look impressive. Now, there is a whole different podcast episode we can do about overcoming the fear of that, and of overcoming, any fear that you really have of putting yourself out there. That's a totally different conversation. But I highly recommend, if you want to be seen as an expert, if you consider yourself a high achiever, to be producing content on LinkedIn. Now, you don't have to do it. I do it 3 times a day, 5 days a week. You don't have to do that. Start with once a week. Start with twice a week. And it's just something small. Maybe you organize it for yourself. Like, one, you're going to give a behind the scenes view of what's going on. The second thing that you do on maybe the end of the week is maybe you want to talk about something that's going on in the industry that you have an opinion about. Maybe it's something that has to do with culture in your organization that you really want to celebrate. So whatever it is, especially if you're a career changer too, I want to note on this, and kind of go back to it a bit. If you are a career changer, this is so important for you to be doing. So again, for career changers, the biggest issue that employers have is they don't believe that you can do the job because you haven't done it before. How you get ahead of that is to start producing resources or assets, whether it's content on LinkedIn or just content that you have in the sidelines, to showcase that you can do the work before they have the objection. It's objection handling. It's sales 101, essentially is what it is. And so it makes you more irresistible to hiring managers if you're able to get ahead of that. And it helps maybe stifle any fears that they have that you might not be able to do the work because you're already talking about it. You're already invested in it. You're already moving in that direction. All right. So the first thing is Little Black Book of Networking. Second thing is developing LinkedIn content. Third thing is when I get a lot of questions about networking, right? So Jenna, I don't really feel comfortable networking, or I don't have a network locally because I think in person is actually helpful. Now, I'm not saying happy hours. I'm not saying these crazy, massive networking events. I think those are really overwhelming. But if you feel like you can't find your people and you want to find your people from a professional standpoint, create it yourself. So create a networking opportunity. Now, I did this when I moved to Nashville. I moved to Nashville about 2 years ago. I knew about 3 people, one person that I was kind of dating at the time, and we broke up quite soon after that. And so I basically knew 2 people when I moved here. And I was an entrepreneur, so I didn't have coworkers to eventually meet in the office. So I said, I know that I need community. I know that that's really important. I can get involved in a church, but I also want to meet people that are also in my similar stage of life. So I started what was called the Breakfast Club. And if you live in the Nashville area and you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, and you are a woman, this was specifically for women, but men are all, you can do this if you're a male, a female, whatever. And we would meet every Friday morning, at a specific different breakfast spot or coffee shop in town. And it was an opportunity to meet other people. And I had my 30th birthday recently, and I was looking around the room at my Nashville friends, and a lot of those people came from the Breakfast Club. So I invited one person or 2 people that ended up meeting somewhere that was an entrepreneur. And then she invited a bunch of her friends, and they invited a bunch of their friends. And that's how I made friends my first year. So one, it's a great tactic for meeting people just to make friends, but also from a networking standpoint. So one of the people that was in there ended up becoming a photographer for me. Another person became a really dear friend, and she spoke words over me that were really helpful. Another person was a realtor. I mean, there was an eclectic group of women that were in that group. The other person was Elizabeth McCravey, who you guys have, if you're around or follow me on Instagram, we're like besties. And she did my website. She's amazing. She does amazing work. But you just never know what's going to happen or who you're going to be connected to that can connect you to your next opportunity. So if you don't know of a networking opportunity, create one. And don't be scared if no one shows up. I think the biggest thing that I learned making that transition is that I was okay with being rejected. And once you get over that fear of being rejected, anything is really possible, because what's the worst that can happen? That's one way to do it. So you can start your own breakfast club in your own city, whether if maybe you are a female professional and you're in corporate America and you want to meet with other people that are in your same industry. Maybe you're a finance woman and you're like, I want to meet other women in finance. Start something and tell your other female friends about it. It's going to spread like wildfire. You'll be so surprised. So Breakfast Club is one option that you could do. Another thing is host a supper club. I had a friend who did this where she called it the brunch experiment, which I really loved, but you can do the same thing for supper, which I've talked about doing in the future. Is you invite like 4 people from different circles in your life. So these 4 people maybe know each other, but most likely they don't know each other. Maybe it's somebody from your work, maybe it's somebody from your church, maybe it's somebody from your family, maybe it's somebody from your friend group, right? And have them bring a person as well. And so what that does is it helps expand your network really fast. And I loved that she did that. She called it the brunch experiment. So again, she invited about 4 people that were her own friends from different circles and had them and bring a friend as well. And so it just allows you the opportunity to meet new people. So host one of those and just have your space as an opportunity to gather people together. So I would actually highly recommend inviting coworkers over to your place and having them bring somebody else as well, because you never know what opportunities are going to come from that. So ways to make the dream job find you is to create networking opportunities to help drive people to your place and just be open to new relationships. I think so many people are not open to meeting new people, and people are the way to get into companies. People are the ones who spend money. People are the ones who make decisions. It's not computer screen. It is not a job search board. None of those things. It's real people that actually make those decisions. So the more that you're open to having new relationships, the more that's going to come to you. So that's another way to make your dream job find you. So first things first, create a little black book of networking to solidify who those people are. 2, it's develop LinkedIn content. 3, if you don't know of networking opportunities, create one yourself. It will also make you look as a thought leader, by the way, and a leader in general, which is obviously highly marketable. And then number 4 is start a passion project. So this is another way to get your dream job to find you. So let's say that this is really especially relevant for career changers. Let's say you're in a company right now and you're like, this is not what my life is going to be like. I do not want to be doing this. I actually want to do this other thing over here, but I don't have experience doing that yet. I know for myself, I knew I wanted to write, and I knew I wanted to speak, and I knew I wanted to teach. I didn't know what that was going to look like. But I started a blog when I worked at the New York Stock Exchange because I had a little bit of extra time, and it was called Giant in Heels. That was my first blog. Super funny, right? So I'm 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", and I like to wear heels. And so I called it Giant in Heels. I wrote about faith. I wrote about fitness. I wrote about all the things that I was kind of going through at that time. And so I was not a good writer before I started the Giant in Heels blog. But over time, I was able to hone that skill, get better at it. And then firmly believe that first quote unquote blog failure was actually setting me up for success in my business now. It also set me up for success when I ended up transitioning to working for the Muse from the New York Stock Exchange, because I was doing a lot of research to how to get myself out there more. And through those efforts, I actually got the opportunity to learn more about marketing, learn about how to market myself, which I think really helped me in that transition point. So one, you should start a passion project. Maybe it's a blog that you're writing about. Maybe you start a nonprofit. But if you want to get into a different field or a different industry or a different type of profession, see if there's an opportunity for you to do the work now or do the work as a side project that's going to help solidify and garner attention of people that would be interested in potentially hiring you in that line of work, or it's something that you can put on your resume as a resume builder. So passion projects really, really showcase that you can do the work, that you can make the experience. Again, it's all about that trust factor, specifically with employers. Like, can this person do the work? Are they going to be a good investment of our time and money? If so, what do we have to back that up? A passion project is one of the best ways to do that. Plus, it gives you an outlet to market yourself in a non-aggressive way for a new opportunity. So let's say that you have a passion you want to get involved with a nonprofit and you're in corporate right now. Starting your own nonprofit is not going to be something that an employer is going to be squawking about. They're going to be probably impressed with that and probably encourage you in that. And it'll also get you the opportunity to then network with people in that industry without it looking super aggressive. So I really, really love the ideas of passion projects because I think it's helped me refine my skills. And it also helps you decide, like, do you even want to do the thing, right? So I think a lot of people have these ideas of what a new career will look like, but they really don't know what they don't know. They don't know if they're going to like it or not. And so for you, having a passion project or having something that you're working on is going to help you understand, like, do you actually like doing the thing? Or do you like talking about the thing? So for me, I realized that I really didn't want to talk about fitness. I really didn't want to talk about, that wasn't really interesting to me over the long term. It helped me realize that I wanted to actually be helping people with their careers. And so again, Giant in Heels was my first blog flop, but it led me to starting my company. So whatever that is for you, I firmly believe that you can make the dream job find you if you are networking constantly, if you're creating those opportunities for yourself, if you're producing content, because again, you're going to be seen as the expert. And then finally, if you start your own passion project, if you're doing those 4 things, you're going to be in a continual rhythm to be seen, to be heard, to be putting yourself out there and unintentionally marketing yourself for future employers or clients or whatever it is that you want to do next in your career. So that was a lot of information today. I wanted to make it short and sweet though. What was your biggest takeaway from today's episode? Are you thinking about how you're going to define and figure out what that dream job is going to look like for you? Are you figuring out what that passion project is going to look like for you? Are you thinking about what cool networking opportunity can you create in your own city? If you have one, I would love to hear it. If you'd like to hear a little bit more about how you can start a breakfast club in your own city and you're interested in that, message me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'd love to share a little bit about how I've done that and how I think we're actually going to be starting it up again in January. So yeah, tell me what you've been doing. Reach out to me on LinkedIn and tell me what your biggest takeaway is from the episode. And then next week, friends, we are talking all about how I got on the Jenna Kutcher podcast. I'm going to give you the exact script I used to land that interview and what it can teach you about networking in general. So you do not want to miss that. I will see you then. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to Your Career Story podcast. I would love to get to meet you. And there are a couple of ways that we can connect in between episodes. First and foremost, I love my LinkedIn. Second is via Instagram. And third is over on my website. I actually have a special spot just for you full of fun, free resources. So all you have to do is go to www.jennaviviano.com/resources. Super simple, for a bunch of freebies that will help you boost your career. Hope to see you next week.